Welcome to the Intrazone, a show about the Microsoft 365 Intelligent Intranet. I'm Mark Cashman, here with my co-host Chris, maybe shedding a few tears because Tom Brady's retiring, McNulty.
Oh my goodness. Mark, do you realize what you've just done? You've beaten me to the first sports reference.
Oh, am I the greatest of them all? Or GOAT, whatever that stands for?
Greatest of all time? I think you're on the track to that. But today, we're going to talk about FastTrack. We'll be talking with Lora Moynihan from the FastTrack team and Mike Hollingshead from the SharePoint team, talking through what we do from the engineering perspective to drive usage and adoption at scale. And we'll also talk with Alejandro Lopez, who sits on the front line with our customers once they're engaged with FastTrack.
We decided to break this one up into two parts because there's just a lot to cover with the FastTrack program. We're going to talk about the best ways to engage FastTrack. Specifically on this podcast, you're going to hear about tips and tricks and ways to engage for OneDrive, SharePoint, and Viva. And because we know that the FastTrack team and the program are holistic across all of the applications and services across Microsoft 365, this is a window in where Lora and Mike and Alejandro are going to give us a real window into how can customers engage with FastTrack to benefit the use of OneDrive, SharePoint, and Viva. There's a lot to talk about, but it is only just a subset of what the FastTrack team really covers.
You know, I think this is definitely a topic that when I'm talking to customers, I hear a lot of questions just about what is FastTrack. Is it a series of guides? Is it advice? Is it a delivery service and adoption information? Well, it's all of those things. It's a floor wax and it's a dessert topping, for those of you who remember the old SNL skit. It is like Microsoft Graph. It is a bunch of APIs and a bunch of AI. FastTrack isn't those things, but it provides such essential onboarding, activation, and adoption guidance to a broad range of our customers. We think it's super important to be able to help you understand what it is and how to engage it.
And you now have put this image in my head of the Bassomatic 5000. I can only think of fish getting blendered right now by our friends from SNL. Good reference. Yeah, I think it's important. You know, a lot of times the people that I talk to about FastTrack the most, I know this will sound a little bit like inside baseball. I oftentimes talk to our field, those people that support our customers on the front line, their salespeople, the folks that are talking with them every day, our customer success folks. And a lot of times, some of the best advice, whether I give it or whether they're just giving it to me, is, you know what, this sounds like a really good time to bring our customers to recommend that they engage with FastTrack. Whether that's go get this nice article or this checklist that they've posted, or true engagement, you know, bring in an architect level person that can help guide through, here's where you are, here's what we offer, and also the roadmap of how to get there.
A lot of times what people are hoping FastTrack is a whole bunch of Jills and Jacks of all trades who will go in and do anything and configure anything and customize everything. And that's not necessarily what their role is. But in the customers I talk to, many of them get the most value, not about getting stuff that they can read, which is helpful, and not about getting implementation services, but just the ability to talk to an architect to figure out, here's the way we should think about this. Here's what other people with similar problems have done. And, you know, if you can think of it as just therapy for the unquiet IT soul, you know, I think that's one of the best things that they can provide.
I think you've just written their new tagline, Chris. There's two things that I like about FastTrack that I think build on what you were just saying. There is a way to understand that it's both for onboarding, getting to the cloud, but it's also for adoption. So that notion of you're in the service, you've already gotten to where you wanted to with your email and calendar. Maybe you've started to leverage Teams for meetings and chat. And you kind of want to ask yourself, what's next? You probably have a huge checklist of things that you want to do to take more advantage of your investment in the cloud. And the benefit with FastTrack is it's always there. Whichever mature curve you're on, as fast or as slow as you want to go. And if it's very project oriented, let's do this next. After we do that, let's do this next. And they help you with that guidance, which I think we both have alluded to, is super important. It really is a service within a service, and that's really both people and the guidance. That's really a pretty broad set of guidance. The other little point, and I'll probably will ask Lora to give this a little bit more clarity, but if you're an Office 365 customer and you qualify with 150 seats or more, it is something that you most likely would want to take advantage of and is a part of your service. It's already a part of what you have. It's a matter of reaching out in the right way and targeting what it is that you want to do next.
I think we should try to be as fast as we can, and we should get out of our way and give our listeners a chance to hear directly from some of the folks who make up Fast Track about how they can take advantages of those capabilities.
So you're trying to fast track us into the Fast Track conversation.
Indeed I am, Mark. Indeed I am.
All right. It is now the time when the rubber hits the road. This is where Chris and I really get out of the way and get into our subject matter experts. And this time we are talking with Lora Moynihan and Mike Hollingshead, who in their both rights focus on Fast Track and all the goodness that gets out to the world, to our customers, taking it from the program side and from the product side. I will let them do justice in who they are. Lora, first, welcome to the Intrazone, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Lora Moynihan. I am Microsoftie for about 13 years now, and I've been in Fast Track since its inception in about 2014. I'm most recently helping get the employee experience scenario featuring Microsoft Viva ready for Fast Track support. And I'm based out in the northeast part of the U.S. in Connecticut.
All right, excellent. I know when we talk with Alejandro, he's in the Dallas area, so we'll get good coverage from east to west coast. Mike, before we jump in and get started, Chris and I know who you are. We've worked together for some years, pretty closely at times. Can you give a sense to our audience who you are and what you're focused on these days?
Sure, Mark. Hi, Intrazoners. I'm Mike Hollingshead. I'm a PM manager in the OneDrive and SharePoint organization, and I've had the luck and opportunity to work very closely with Lora and the Fast Track organization for many years now on enabling our OneDrive, SharePoint, and now connections and topics experiences within the Fast Track motion to help all you wonderful users out there.
Very nice. So if you didn't get the sense from the intro, from their intros, these are some of those folks that are close to Viva and want to make it excellent for you when you think about what is it, how do I deploy it, and how do I ultimately get my employees engaged? And that's really the whole point, employee engagement. But we want to know, what is Fast Track in helping rolling out things like OneDrive, SharePoint, and especially recently the employee experience through Viva. So Lora, do you mind if we start with just kind of a simple, really high level for those that don't know about the Fast Track program, what it is, how to get involved, and some of the things that Microsoft offers to our customers?
Sure. The Fast Track Center benefit is for eligible licenses of Microsoft 365. And what it means is that if you buy an eligible license of Microsoft 365, then you get this benefit called Fast Track, where we help you at no additional cost to get you up and running on the services that you purchased. So it's a remotely guided combination of tools and documentation where we help guide your customer representative, admin, whoever's designated on the customer side to work on the technical enablement. And we help them step through that point between sales and actually having their users in using the products.
So Lora, Fast Track is one of these really shape-shifting things, because sometimes it's a set of guidance, sometimes it's a set of principles, or it's a migration, or it's really, some level of implementation and assistance. What are the best ways the customers can get engaged with Fast Track to learn more about what it involves and how they can take advantage of the wealth of knowledge and expertise that you all bring to our customers?
Yeah, the best way to learn more about FastTrack and also to engage with us is by visiting the service description that we have out on our docs.microsoft.com site. An easy way for you to get to it would be aka.ms/FastTrack benefit. And it's really broken into about 4 different key sections. The first just tells you what the FastTrack Center benefit is for Microsoft 365. The second section really digs into the eligibility. What are the eligible licenses and the products and capabilities that we support? Third is the process that we follow in FastTrack and expectations, and that's going to be where you see how to engage with us. And then last is more detailed information on the specific products and capabilities, what we do to help you within each of them. So that'll go into the more detail of the services and scenarios that we support and exactly what we'll do with you to help you get them stood up in your organization. And then in terms of how to engage with us, the best way is, and there's links to the site from the service description, is through our FastTrack portal where you file a request for assistance, and it will light up the eligible services that your organization has purchased that you can then select which ones you're requesting assistance with. And that is how we engage with our customers, is through that RFA form.
And the RFA triggers what it sounds like, a true request for assistance. This could be lightweight, help answer a question. It could be self-service guided. Once you understand, where to look, there's a lot of things that then are self-guided and self-service. But it also could be a request for an architect. If you get to that level of a requirement and a request through the FastTrack program. Can you talk just lightly about when people are thinking about onboarding or adoption of a variety of technologies, who they're actually engaging with, kind of the breadth of what the FastTrack program offers through self-service and the direct with our engineers?
Sure. We have probably about 1,000 engineers globally that are part of the FastTrack Center, as well as FastTrack partners, FastTrack Center partners that we work with as well, that are all trained to work with our customers on helping deploy the Microsoft 365 benefit using our remotely guided deployment guidance to help you. So when we get the RFA form in, it's triaged, and if you've ever worked with us before and you had a FastTrack architect or a FastTrack manager that you'd engaged with in the past, there's a little bit of triaging where we try to determine if you've worked with us before to to see if we can assign you to the same set of folks that you were working with previously. It depends on the level of what you're asking for support with and that person's expertise.
I think it's important to know that throughout the process of engaging with FastTrack, it may have started with, hey, I saw on your website X or Y and I had a question. And that leads to, if we're talking about something like a SharePoint intranet deployment, broader guidance. It could be workshops. It could be actual people on the ground, or at least virtually on the ground, that are engaging. And it is there to be successful. And there are distinct offerings. And that's what I think we want to transfer to just get a little bit more information from Mike, that because our audience is very oriented around the history of SharePoint and being, focused with that as our part of our show, but it's also the broader Microsoft 365 app environment. But if, Mike, when you see people reaching out to FastTrack specifically around SharePoint, OneDrive, recently with Viva, what are some of the things that you're seeing that are being driven by asks for customers and what we offer as offerings through FastTrack?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's a really great service because it helps customers begin their journey. So from service enablement, for example, for OneDrive, hey, I've got known folder move. What are the best practices around configuring that and mobile experiences, to transitioning their data to the cloud, for example, from a migration perspective. And now that we're getting into employee experiences in Viva, this is where I'm really excited about a transition that FastTrack is on, where they're talking to our customers more and more about scenario-based engagements and the business transformation journey that they're on. I've got a dirty little secret, over the last 4 or 5 years working in OneDrive and SharePoint space, when I start having conversations with customers, it's less and less about the specific tool set and more on what is the business transformation that you're on and how can we help you choose the most optimal path to get there. And it's just great to see FastTrack adopting that methodology as well, specifically for Viva Connections and Viva Topics, for example.
Talk about that a little bit more. So, within the FastTrack organization, I know your role is sitting right on the frontier between the OneDrive, SharePoint, Viva organization and the FastTrack organization. So what's like when we're formulating a new product and it's kind of in early stages as it is with Viva, how does FastTrack figure out the best ways to get customers launched and onboarded? Because there's just so much to dig into.
FastTrack has this really interesting concept called an incubation effort. It's an experiment. It's a way to try out new services, take our latest adoption playbooks, for example, our best practices, our tools, our templates to help you get started, and then actually lean in and engage with some customers and get a firsthand experience of what works and what doesn't. Typically we try things intentionally that may not scale to the broader FastTrack benefit, but we want to experiment. We want to learn, and we want to do that directly with customer feedback. So we're grounded in the customer experience on what really works. And so that's a great partnership, again, that we have going with Lora and team, where we have this opportunity to try things out and experiment on our best practices and our hypotheses of what we think is an optimal adoption path. And then based on those learnings, we turn that into a scale motion that Lora mentioned before on how you can engage with the FastTrack service.
So I know that we started, over a year ago, we had an offering through FastTrack on employee engagement, which was, from your way of describing it, sort of the precursor to the things that we're doing with employee experience.
Absolutely. We talked about highlighting some very specific scenarios around how you can enable your leadership team to engage more broadly with your organization. How can you enable knowledge workers to find information, for example, that they may not be in the know of? And what that's burgeoned into is these offerings centered around connections, for example, topics, and there are specific scenarios for learning and insights as well around that employee experience platform that Lora and team has operationalized into a full-fledged service.
So let's kind of roll forward to present day. So Viva Connections, has been available for a good number of months now. And so too, we are supporting it through FastTrack. Can you talk a little bit about what does it look like for a customer to engage FastTrack for Viva Connections?
So when they get started, a lot of times we get customer questions around, well, where do I start? What are the types of scenarios that I should think about? What is Connections really suited for from a platform perspective? And what specifically should I be engaging with in my existing service investments in, say, SharePoint, Yammer, et cetera? And so what Lora and team have done is they help customers get started with a specific set of scenarios, specifically around, let's say, leadership connectivity, leadership connection, making sure your brand as a leadership team is truly reaching your employees. And then what they've very cleverly done is broken down all of the components. And for example, the modern SharePoint templates that we have, for example, up on the lookbook, where we've got a sample leadership connection site that you can begin piloting your experiences on top of, so you don't have to start from scratch. And so they've done a really nice job of identifying the building blocks on what it takes to enable that experience in those scenarios, and then also the templates that you can take advantage of as an organization to bootstrap your experience. You're not starting from scratch. And then, of course, they have wonderful folks that have been engaging with many customers that can share the best practices around how to maximize that investment in your particular organization.
Maybe go back to Lora, thinking about FastTrack as a program. Do you have any just insights in, when you spot something on the horizon, we now know Connections by name, and probably implementation is done so many times we've ironed that out. But just what goes into getting to where we are at with something like a Viva Connections offering?
I would love to dig into what Mike just said a little bit too, and share a little bit more about that. I've been doing this type of program management work for FastTrack since we created FastTrack back in 2014. So we're really where we start is we look at the products and capabilities. So if we know that something is coming, we really try to get that partnership with our marketing and engineering counterparts so that we're brought in early, as early as possible so that we're part of the design phase and the engineering phase, and we can start building our fast track offer around the product that's coming. And so one of the first things we do is for the product, we start to look at the use cases for that product. What makes sense for Fast Track to support? What types of use cases fit into the Fast Track model that can be delivered remotely through guidance, as opposed to something that might be more of a partner opportunity that's more of a hand-holding or a customization, for example. So we do that scenario definition and scoping real early on, and we decide what parts, which use cases and what part for connections, which of the use cases within the connections module does it make sense for Fast Track to support, what'll help point our customers on the right path towards using the product. And then we spend several months really plugging all of that into our Fast Track engine. So what I mean by that is when you have a group of 1,000 engineers sitting all over the world and 12, I believe, languages that we also support for our customers, we have a lot of content and tooling that we have to build to enable our engineers to be able to support the customers in deploying the product. So we're busy building specs on how to integrate it into the tooling so that we can track data and surface important data for the engineers to follow with the customer, as well as the content so that they actually know more about the product and how to help the customer with the challenges that they're looking to solve or envisioning what they could do with it. We do a lot of course, reporting too, to make sure that we can measure our success and progress. Part of what we do when we're building out a fast track offering for our product is a lot of that work. And we've been working on that for employee experience and for Viva for most of 2021.
Of what I know about Fast Track, and certainly learning more today, the outbound understanding of what Fast Track is, it should mean these are proven actions and activities that you can take to get to a known goal or known end state. And that can be very customized. It can be delivered in a lot of different ways. But the scope of what you've done is you've taken a variety of inputs and seen this repeatable ask, all these requirements and the want of many customers, to then set into stone more of an engagement where we know you're trying to accomplish X, so we've built X and you will get X, versus kind of randomized offerings that may or may not work. I think a Fast Track is kind of a proven track record of exactly what the product's built for, exactly what customers are asking for. And on top of that, your program part is and at scale. It may be a weird way to think about it, but does that feel right, where what Fast Track offers is proven and known to be something that a lot of our customers want?
Yes. I mean, if you look back on when we first created Fast Track, it was very much about the workload. What, you want to deploy Exchange, will help you turn on Exchange. Do you want to deploy SharePoint, will help you turn on SharePoint. And over the years, it's really evolved into that, having those conversations with our customers on what you can do with the product, how we bring a bundle of workloads together to meet a business need, and having more of those rich discussions. And then as part of that, when we're building a Fast Track support model for a product, we're doing pilots, as Mike mentioned too, with some of the piloting we do. We learn during those pilots where we should support, where it makes sense to support, what we could help our customers with successfully. And then we start trying to build the content and process around it to be able to release it and get it to our customers so that we can work with our customers on how to really not just technically enable the product, but also how to best use it to meet their business needs.
So from the programmatic side of things, we've talked a lot about Viva. It's kind of the new kid on the block, and there's a lot of energy behind it. And of course, a lot of questions and how-to coming from our customers. So it's really great to see the Fast Track service start to now implement a ton across the Viva offering. But Mike, I wanted to get back to you and kind of the core of this show, like I mentioned, SharePoint, OneDrive. If people are thinking, well, how can Fast Track help me with other things? I'm thinking about SharePoint deployment X or OneDrive use Y. What other things can we highlight that are those offerings for SharePoint and OneDrive that are scenarios that resonate with customers and what Fast Track offers?
Sure, you bet, Mark. So one place to start is migrations. So Fast Track has a really healthy migration service offering that they provide to bring either your content from file shares, for example, or other services in the cloud. So a lot of times we talk about, hey, how do I even get my content in to the service. So that's a common place to start from. And then I think I mentioned previously, but from a OneDrive perspective, configuring known folder move is a big one as well. The mobile experiences, so that's an important aspect. And then also from a SharePoint perspective, we also get lots of questions around, well, can you help me out from a hybrid configuration point of view? And then getting into employee experiences like we were talking specifically around connections and topics. So connections has some very specific scenarios around leadership connection, learning portals, and some other thoughts of leveraging some of the great lookbook templates, for example, that we have out there. And then from a topics perspective, how do you get started setting up your knowledge center? How do you think about engaging with knowledge managers around you in your ecosystem? I recognize I quickly got right back into employee experience, but the way I think about it is how can I configure the modern experiences from a OneDrive and SharePoint perspective so I'm set up for success with employee experiences? And that includes, I would say, getting your data into the cloud are probably the top common requests that we see.
Let me ask the question that maybe on some of the audience's minds. What are the things that, because no two customer situations are alike. What are scenarios where FastTrack might not be the best avenue, where engaging kind of a traditional partner or internal resources might make more sense? Can you comment on that?
So look, sometimes you've got very highly customized scenarios. You may need to solve a business need that requires very much custom applications based on the SharePoint framework, for example. And that is not something that's kind of out of the box, right? We provide the platform. That's wonderful. But if you're into the custom development perspective, then I think that's an example, Chris, that's outside of the scope of FastTrack and where it would be helpful to engage with one of our very rich partners that can provide those services.
I was going to say, too, another example would be for project management. If you're looking for somebody to actually project manage the customer side of the engagement, that's not a role that FastTrack would play, and it would be a good opportunity for potentially a partner to help.
That's another great example. And then riffing on that, I guess, a little bit would be, sometimes we have customers that have highly customized SharePoint on-prem configurations. That's currently a partner play as well, because that would be out of scope from a project management complexity perspective. Those are all kind of special snowflakes. So that's something that would be, something to leverage one of our great migration partners that are out there in the ecosystem for that.
I can only imagine that when people are considering a move to the cloud, there's a lot to review around what I think everybody hopes is a copy paste and just stand up the service. But the realities are there are a lot of complexities, and there are a lot of things that we can offer as a part of that request for assistance. The actual assistance that you get will help with that deployment, will help with that adoption, will help unblock just even answering questions. But as it leads to, there are some parts of the migration that need a specific tool, or we have a specific partner that can do X. Or if you need, like Lora said, project management to help you kind of scale through all of that, there's at least a helping hand from Microsoft. And a lot of it is in those proven, known, we know our technology, we know a lot of what people want to do on that technology, but also that we have this broader ecosystem. I think the RFA, if that is the initial point of entry, speaks for the customer raising their hand and should be absolutely 100% aware that they can do that across a lot of different workloads and across a lot of different scenarios. And I'm happy that our next conversation is really to hear a little bit more closer to the customer. We'll be talking with your peer, Alejandro Lopez, that really will get into what our customers, talking about. And he's, working with them through Wizards, and we'll ask him a lot more about that. But before we dive into customer, what would you say if we were to just wind down part one? What do you want customers to know, leaving this part of the episode? And Mike, I'll start with you, and then Laura, I'd love to get your thoughts just to close out.
Thanks, Mark. I would say there's someone here to help, to your point. They're super friendly. They're here to see you be successful as a customer. And to your point earlier, Mark, like they're wonderful at saying, here's what I could help you with your project on. Here are the best practices you want to think about. And then here are examples where if you need help above and beyond, here's where you can start to go find some of those resources. So they're just such a wonderful service that you can continue to go back to as well down the road. For example, if you're starting a new type of project or engagement. So that's what I would probably reinforce.
Lora, any last thoughts to customers, or even if partners are listening to this episode, things that they can chew on and think about when it comes to FastTrack?
Yeah, I'll pile on to what Mike said. I mean, I would encourage everyone to familiarize yourself with the FastTrack service offering, especially in terms of the eligibility, to see if you're eligible and what we specifically do. We work a lot with partners, so partners as well. Encourage everybody to read up. And there's a lot of folks here that are very knowledgeable and willing to help you and very resourceful and have a lot of expertise in this area, and also a lot of support in 12 different global languages as well. So hopefully between all of that, we can help our customers help deploying the services that they purchased.
Terrific. Lora, Mike, thank you so much for making time. We know that FastTrack is very busy and very fast these days, so appreciate making time for our audience. Thank you.
All right, it is that part of the podcast, part 2, where we want to get a little bit more of a sense of what do customers think about all of this? And we're going to get pretty close to customers in general, especially customers that have been thinking about Viva, working with Viva, getting some sense of support from Microsoft about Viva. So we're going to talk with Alejandro Lopez, who is one of our employee experience subject matter experts. He is a SME in all things Viva, and he works within the FastTrack program. So Alejandro, welcome to the IntroZone.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I just have to ask, a lot of our conversations are on Teams these days, but where are you and where do you reside within the FastTrack program, and also just a location? Where do you often call and work with customers from?
Currently, I'm based out of Dallas, actually about 30 to an hour north of the Metroplex. So that's currently where I reside. And within the FastTrack org, we have multiple teams where we help with different technologies. And most recently, what I've been working on is within the employee experience efforts that we're leading. And so we get to play around a lot with Viva, and we get to do a lot of work with our enterprise customers, helping them deploy all 4 of the Viva modules.
So you are not only on the front line of working directly with customers, but you're also just on the front line of very new technology. I work pretty closely with the Viva team, and Chris, my co-host, is focused on Viva topics and working on broader Viva go-to-market. But really getting that sense of FastTrack is designed to help customers with both deployment and adoption. And I know there's a lot more to it. We heard a lot from Lora and Mike specifically about the program and about the specific offerings as you narrow it down to OneDrive, SharePoint, and now Viva with some of those specific offerings. But I was hoping if you would help us capture that customer voice, some of the most common scenarios that you see being adopted in through that lens of FastTrack supporting or helping with Viva deployment and maybe even just understanding.
Well, what we're currently seeing a lot of interest at the moment is with Viva Connections and Viva Insights. Now, there are likely multiple factors and reasons for that. However, I think one key driving factor for that has likely exacerbated a lot of the scenarios we are seeing today is the advent of the hybrid workplace. So for a lot of customers, with everything that has transpired in these past 2 years, companies have had to accelerate, or in some cases even reimagine the way they do the work. And so as a result, this has created 2 clear and immediate needs. So one, how can employees in the company, whether they're new or existing, remain informed, and how will they connect with others in the company? Some questions that customers might ask themselves at this point is, well, how do I build a culture with strong relationships, with strong communications, dare I say strong connections, That's fundamental, especially when there's a lot of work being done virtually. Now, the second thing that we're seeing quite a bit of, and it's this sudden requirement for companies to transform their business. How can company leaders and managers build and maintain a healthy workforce, not just physically, but also mentally? Now, as we all know, people are the most important asset of any company. Well, Viva Insights helps companies focus on employee well-being, and it empowers managers and leaders to build a thriving workforce.
Do you see a lot of, if the common scenario is, I want my teams, my people to be more informed, we want to transform how people work so that they can be more connected, they can get their work done maybe more quickly, or at least more in line with what the rest of the company is doing. And if that is the impetus and scenario that they're staring at, and maybe have been thinking about even before Viva existed, the kind of conversations that you're having, what are some of the bigger concerns that people have, whether it's specifically with Viva or when they're thinking about implementing an employee experience platform like Viva, the concerns that they would have, if I'm going to accomplish X, what am I worried about? What are they worried about?
A lot of it is the experience for that end user. Because of them now having to adjust their work style. Say, if the employee is having to work from home, and if this is a new employee that has just recently joined the company, what will their experience be like? How can they connect with others in the organization? Now, for customers in the past, you might have an internet portal where they can go out there, get information, and you see this top-down approach where a lot of the news announcements might come through that internet portal. What we're doing with connections, we are modernizing that piece and allowing a space for the employees, again, here thinking of a new employee to the company, to be able to join the company, be able to inform themselves as to what is the latest with the company, what is the company's vision, the mission, how can I connect with others when I'm not getting an opportunity to go into the office? What does that connection look like? And so we leverage a lot of key workloads that are part of Microsoft 365, including SharePoint, Yammer, and Teams. And so when we think about these individuals that are new, and really even those that are existing, how do we continue to foment those relationships? How do we build those relationships? How do we continue to have that perhaps talk that might have happened serendipitously and now we no longer have because we are working from home? With connections, we are allowing and creating this space where individuals can share by way of Yammer communities. We have the ability to funnel in that feedback into their Connections app. Secondly, for company communicators, for leaders, if there are some important announcements, for example, with folks maybe coming back into the office for part-time or in more of a hybrid model, they might want to be aware of certain things to keep in mind when they're going into the office. How do you communicate that? How do you disseminate that knowledge? And so we have the Connections app within Teams, and the opportunity for employees to be able to digest that information more efficiently, to be able to act upon that knowledge by using what would be now considered the adaptive cards in the Connections dashboard. So again, we are allowing and creating this space for employees to connect, to collaborate, and really continue to build a business culture, and in many ways also even to transform the way that work is done.
I know from what I've been hearing, there's a lot of value in being able to not only convey to the customer that they're building on a lot of their existing investments and either how they've implemented SharePoint already from a home site perspective or just the leveraging it for their broader use of their intranet. But then how that maps to bringing in Yammer, bringing in Stream, and other technologies that are now new that kind of pour through Viva Connections. If there was the kind of tactical thing that you'd want people to know specific about how the FastTrack team is helping build on that innovation that will help guide or accelerate how people can think about deployment, if they're thinking about their Viva Connections adoptions plans or just wanting to review what does it all take to get it into place with this new offering. Can you walk through what that means when we now know a lot more about how to engage with FastTrack and what it is, but specific to what you were just describing, how do we help people, come up to speed on what's possible?
So the question is, this is something that we have been thinking about when we first put together the program for Viva All Up and supporting it within FastTrack. That was a question that we asked ourselves, and how are we going to help our customers be successful in their business transformation journey? And a lot of that included various roles with different expertise, skill sets. And as we were figuring out what would be the best way to equip our customers with the right tools to be successful, and what we arrived at is what is known as the Employee Experience Wizard. This wizard is available directly in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. You can access it by browsing to aka.ms/EE-wizard. Now, within Wizard, what you'll find is a multitude of guides that we have put together with best practices in mind. Because it is available directly in the tenant, it is able to contextualize a lot of the guidance. Right. So when you think about the wizard, say, for example, if there is a certain feature that is only available because of a license, for example, Azure AD Premium, the wizard is smart enough to only present you with that guidance because of the fact that it is directly in your tenants. So this wizard we have, again, put together, we like to think of them as recipes. So whenever you're thinking about, hey, well, I'm considering deploying Viva Connections or deploying Viva Insights, topics, learning, we have put together these recipes that are essentially step-by-step guides. You can walk through each of them step by step. You can track the progress of each of these steps. You can assign due dates. You can assign it to an individual within the organization. This will allow you to track the deployment of these various modules of Microsoft Viva. And with the support of FastTrack, if you do have a FastTrack engagement, FastTrack has engineers like myself that are more than happy to help you, guide you through that process. If this is not something where you do have a FastTrack engagement, you still have the opportunity to do a self-service model. This is accessible just by merely having access to Microsoft 365. This is available to you in that tenant using that short URL that I shared earlier. And you can walk through this together. And our hope is that it is simple enough. It is something that at the same time is detailed so that you are successful when you're deploying the product. It's always an interesting balance when you go between sharing enough information, but also not overwhelming, and at the same time, not enough information. And so we have done our best to strike that right balance, and we're continuing to iterate on the wizard with the hopes that as we learn from other customers, as we evolve the product, that you will always see the latest and greatest in that wizard.
So we will for sure put a link. I'll just reiterate it one more time if I heard correctly, aka.ms/EE-wizard. We'll put that in the show notes and encourage people to go there. My understanding from what you said is it has a mix, or can be a mix, of a self-service approach to deploying the technology and being guided through all the steps of turning this on, checking that, making sure, and it's self-aware of what you already have and have access to. But it also has the ability to basically raise a hand, if I heard you correctly. And you put an image in my head that if they're going through the wizard and they raise their hand for help from Alejandro or others, is you would actually fly down with a wizard's cap. And like in Harry Potter, you would help. Is that correct?
Close to that, yes. Yeah. We do have entry points there for, say, if you are walking through one of the guides and for some reason you're either having some difficulty, you have some question, you have the ability to open up a ticket there at the same time. Now we figured that, okay, that might be something that would be a layer of support as you're walking through this wizard in a self-service model. At the same time, we do have also a FAQ section. So as you're walking through that wizard, we thought, hey, well, what are some potential frequently asked questions that you might see at this juncture of the wizard? And so you'll see that as well. You'll have the benefit of still having guidance from the various engineers here in the FastTrack Center. We hope that it is helpful, and as I shared before, it is something that we're still continuing to iterate. We are building in automation. As I mentioned earlier, because this is available directly in your tenants, you'll be able to get tailored, contextualized guidance for the individual that is running through the wizard. And so that this is for us is something that we've been aspiring to for a while now, being able to modernize the way we do deployments. And so hopefully this will be a tool that you can have in your toolbox that as you're thinking about the way you transform your business, and whether it be any of the Viva modules, whether it be the connections, insights, topics, and learning, that you have access to this tool, and it is a knowledge base that we have collated for the benefit and use of all of our customers.
Alejandro, while I've got you, and certainly as people consume, either by what they're wanting to do next or just exploring what's possible, as an end user myself, I have gotten a lot of new value from Viva Insights, and I use it often to go in and kind of quickly set aside a little bit of focus time. And I also use it at the end of the week just to review what it is that I might have missed that I mentioned, or somebody asked something, and kind of a nudge reminder, to stay connected, and reminders of different conversations that I've had. But from your perspective, we talked a lot about Viva in general and Viva Connections as an example. I'd love to just know in a minute or two, what do you hear specifically from customers that then lights the light bulb up in your head of, oh, I'd really like to share more about Viva Insights? From that broader employee experience owner at the customer side, what triggers your mind when you go, I think Viva Insights is going to help you? Where do you see that fit?
Customers that are looking for additional analytics or insights into where they're at with their business. So when we think about employees and their well-being, we know that employees that feel that are not overwhelmed, that perhaps are not burned out, that they will thrive in the business, and then they will feel more productive. For customers that are wanting to know, how is my workforce doing out there right now? If you start to see where a lot of your employees are having to work after hours, well, that is an indicator that perhaps this is something that needs to be visited, that there is an opportunity to either add headcount, or either being able to visit with these employees and being able to help out with the workload, with bandwidth, with the way that they're working today. So for customers that want to have an understanding of where they're at today, Insights, it's a fantastic tool. I like to think of Insights as a multi-pronged tool that gives you benefits, not just at the personal insights level. As you well mentioned, Mark, there are key features that will help you as you plan out your day, for you to be able to set aside some focus time so that you're not just running from meeting to meeting. That's on the personal insights front. There's a manager insights capability as well. So whenever you think about teams, you bring up your Insights Teams tab, you'll see for managers that have at least 9 individuals underneath them, that they will have a My Team tab. And under My Team tab, they will have Group Manager Insights. So they can see this level of information that allows them to say, hey, well, it looks like a large portion of my team, without any names, this is all the identified information, but it allows them to see trends and behaviors. And if you are seeing as a manager that, hey, my team is working late, that is an opportunity to have a conversation. There's also a leader insight component at the broader level for the organization to see organizational resiliency. If you are seeing, hey, well, what is the finance and the sales department, how they're working together. Those are 3 key fundamental capabilities of Insights, which I think is just bringing some much needed information and capabilities for customers to drive that transformation that I was speaking of earlier. So again, not just at the personal, but also manager and at the leader level.
Yeah, I think that's a really important context. The app is certainly designed for an individual through their team's experience, but it has much broader application to get the benefits of how people at the manager and the organization level can understand, how are my people doing? What are some big things that we can do that improve the employee experience? Not our offering through the app, but their actual employee happiness, which is really, really great to see. In fact, after this recording, I might go and do a 10-minute headspace meditation just to relax, so that I can feel comforted and back into the flow of my work. But Alejandro, I wanted to thank you for your time from Redmond, Washington, all the way out there to you in Dallas, Texas. Thank you for being on the IntraZone.
Appreciate you, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Up next on the IntraZone events, if there's an event going on in your corner of the world or your corner of the virtual world, we'd love to hear about it and be able to promote it. And here's what you've shared with us. And the exciting news is, as we look over the next few months, a lot more in-person events than we've seen at any point in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and to start that, I think we go and across the pond. There is a nice Collab Days event in England at Bletchley Park, and they have a great event. It's very localized. That's the nice thing about Collab Days, same as you would think of that history of SharePoint Saturdays and the like. These are very regional and locally, great networking opportunities, a lot of great content. It's a full day of content, and they have a beautiful setting that's right where the machine that was originally used to break some codes. There's a nice museum, a great park. It sounds like a great location. That's in England, Collab Days, February 23rd, 2022.
Closely following on the heels there is Enterprise Connect. That's a great event. It'll be happening live in Orlando, Florida, this side of the pond, March 21st to 24th. And of course, that might or might not be happening during North American baseball spring training. So more than one reason to be able to be in Florida next month.
Okay, so get your Cracker Jacks and popcorn ready. So since we've been on one side of the pond and moving back to the U.S., there's a nice virtual event, which is a pretty sizable event. It's called Teams Nation. This is Teams Nation 2022. It's on March 23rd, and it has a whole host of keynote sessions, overview sessions, really anything that revolves around Teams. I've got a session about leveraging lists inside of Teams to help manage events at scale. And I know a lot of my colleagues at Microsoft are MVPs and those folks in the community that are driving this. It's 100% free, 100% driven by the community. It's got a great team behind it. Again, Teams Nation, March 23rd.
Also coming up in March, but on no specific day yet, in Cologne, Germany, Collab Days. So that team has been really helpful over the years. I suppose if you're interested in the event, Germany's lovely in the spring. I guess go to Cologne, stay for a month, wait till you see a bunch of folks with backpacks and Teams logos congregating somewhere and just, follow them.
For this next one, I'm virtually wearing my backpack because I would love to be going on one of the trains for an endless amount of time with my Eurail pass. But I'm going to Eurail pass this one back to you because I think this next event is one that's right in your wheelhouse. Can you share with us times and dates and a little bit more about the Document Strategy Forum?
This event's been on hold for the last 2 years. We were there in 2019. We're great to be able to go back in 2022. So I'm delivering one of the keynotes. We're bringing a decent-sized team of Microsoft folks. It's really looking at all the ways that content and documents get generated and used and managed throughout your organization for employees, for customers, for compliance, and all of the combinations thereof. That's April 4th to 6th at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare in Chicago, Illinois.
So this is also going to be pretty much around the same time as the next Microsoft 365 conference. The old name, now a lot easier to say. This is the same event team that put on the Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference. Shortened it a little bit, same value, a lot of the same level of keynote speakers, breakout sessions, a mix of Microsoft and MVPs and community. And it's in person. It's in Las Vegas again at the MGM Grand. And this is where I'm going to just have fun watching Chris go from Chicago to Las Vegas and straddling as best he can. But knowing that there's going to be a lot of great people. We've got a Jeff Teeper keynote that we're planning. We've got a number of people coming from the Power Platform team, the Teams team. The Microsoft Viva will have a distinct separate track. And of course, I'm helping manage the content for OneDrive and SharePoint. So there's a lot of great content. It will be very much an updated, refreshed look at the best and most of what we can put out there. We're also trying to be mindful of making sure there are sessions that are around use and adoption or a little bit more depth, not just news oriented. So come here in person in Vegas, latest, greatest from Microsoft and MVPs and community at the Microsoft 365 conference. That's April 5th through the 7th, 2022.
Later on in April, AIM 2022, going to be the 27th through the 29th in Denver, Colorado. AIM, for those of you who don't know it, is the Association for Intelligent Information Management. And Microsoft is one of the members of AIM, but this is a broad coalition of companies and customers who gather together to look at how do we use information to drive transactions, to help us be smarter about things, and taking advantage of the best of breed approaches across the board. So AIM is lovely. We've really been heavily engaged with AIM over the past 5 or 6 years, virtually for the past 2. We're taking a fairly large presence at AIM. We're doing a keynote and 4 or 5 sessions. We have a really big lounge-style booth that'll be in the center of the expo hall, bring about 15 folks in the product team. So if you're looking to get some great interaction with folks in the M365 product team, and why wouldn't you? AIM would be a great place to attend.
Yeah, I would like to think that AIM stands for Artificially Intelligent McNulty. Is that okay?
I'm suspect that you said the word intelligent twice about me because if you just said
it's a double positive. It's a double positive.
Make it the AM conference, Artificial McNulty.
There we go.
Empty suit and thesaurus, and that's all you need.
Well, if anything, just remember Microsoft is taking AIM to have a great presence at AIM, and Mr. Chris McNulty is behind a lot of it, so you know it's going to be good. The next event is in Sweden. This is a little bit of a smaller event, but one that we wanted to highlight because a number of us will be virtually logging in and providing, whether it's a keynote or a broader overview session, to help kick off and sometimes end the day. This is May 4th and 5th, locally in Sweden with a little bit of hybrid, some people virtually giving presentations. It's called SEF 2022. Again, May 4th through the 5th in Sweden and hybrid online.
And then coming up also in early May is CFKA SPF, otherwise known as 365 EduCon. And that acronym stands for Conference formerly known as SharePoint Fest. I don't know what happened during the pandemic. Everyone's changed their names. I'm still me. You're still you. And
you give people a little wiggle room and they go, you know what? It's time to rebrand.
So that's May 9th to 12th. We expect it to be kind of a broader version of what you've seen at SharePoint Fest in years past. David and team have assembled, a great range of community speakers. And when they do their events here in the Seattle area, it's an easy opportunity for those of us who are Redmond-based, and that's a sizable chunk of Microsoft, to be able to swing over to the conference, to speak, to interact with attendees. And so really encouraging folks, if you're looking for something in the 365 EduCon space, the Seattle event in May is a great place to do that.
We've got really 3 unique things. There will be a Jeff Teeper keynote, and we're pulling in some folks that maybe don't often speak but represent the Teams team. We're working on who that is, but we got a lot of great ideas. The other thing is there's going to be a little bit of a broader Ask Microsoft Anything that Jeff will lead, and he's again pulling in some of his team to come across the water, which is literally 13 miles away. So we'll get some folks that maybe aren't commonly at conferences, but get this opportunity to listen and, of course, provide feedback, Q&A. And the third thing is we're just starting now to think about planning a SharePint. Even though they took SharePoint out of their name, an EduCon pint just doesn't ring just yet in my head. So if you can come up with an EduCon something that revolves around an evening activity, we are working on Jeff's calendar with David and team to get a SharePint together so that we can gather and have that be maybe where we do the AMA, or maybe it's just a networking event. We want to thank our guests, Lora, Mike, and Alejandro, to share all that they know about the Fast Track program and the interactions that they've had with customers both directly and at scale.
We encourage you to check out our show page for links to everything we talked about today and more. Visit us at aka.ms/theintrozone.
You can always send us your questions and feedback for the SharePoint teams or things that you want to let Chris know, and maybe secretly let me know if I can give Chris that session that he wanted at 365 EduCon. Just send us an email at theintrozone@microsoft.com or via Twitter at SharePoint, at mcashman, and at cmcnulty2000.
And if you loved the show, and we hope you did, please rate it, review it, and tell all your friends about it. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts, even if it's an empty Olympic stadium.
We want to thank you so much for listening to this episode and every single episode, because we know you love them all. We are your hosts, Mark Cashman and Chris McNulty. This has been The Interzone, a show about the Microsoft 365 super fast, fast track intelligent intranet.